Hello and welcome to Season 9, Episode 26 of the Ubuntu Podcast. In this episode, we're going to discuss 25 years of the web. That's the World Wide Web. And we'll also have some command line love and go over your feedback. I'm Laura, and joining me this week are Alan.
Hello, hello.
Mark.
Hello.
And Martin.
Hello.
Hello. What have you been up to, Mark?
I have been fixing things with Sugru.
Excellent. Awesome stuff.
Awesome stuff. What have you been fixing?
I've been fixing my dishwasher and my headphones.
I thought it was some sort of JavaScript framework or something.
Go back in your box.
Okay.
No,
what is it? It's like,
this was real life.
Is it like
patching.
Superglue or something? Then?
No, it's like it's self-curing silicon rubber. So you get it in these little foil packets, and then you kind of mold it into whatever shape you need to stick on or fix what you need it to. And it's like waterproof and heat resistant and so on.
And they come in different colours.
They come in different colours. So I got some white to, like, the rack in my dishwasher had started to, like, the sealant on it had started to wear out and it was going rusty. So I resealed it with some white Sugru.
So you sealed the rust in nicely with some Sugru.
Yeah.
You can't see it now, it doesn't exist.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'd sat on my headphones and broken one of the cups had come off the arm. And so I did some black Sugru to stick that back on. And now it's all fixed.
Cool.
I have some broken headphones. I could use some Sugru to fix mine. That's a brilliant idea. And I have some Sugru in my fridge.
Excellent.
Perfect.
I know what I'm doing tonight.
You're recording a podcast. Martin.
I have switched to Ubuntu phone full time.
Ooh.
I don't believe you.
No, I really have.
Which device is this on?
The MX4, the Meizu MX4.
Mm-hmm.
And how's it going?
Mostly fine. So this has been some weeks in preparation. So I've, been testing on an Nexus 4 and testing on an E5 HD.
As part of the preparation,
I realised that neither of those were going to cut it if I was going to do this on a daily device, but I figured out what apps I needed and stuff like that. And now I've got a device which is acceptable for day-to-day use. And there's a few bumps in the road that I was expecting and I've got plans for, and there was a few unexpected bumps in the road that I'm like, oh, what am I going to do about this? So I've got some challenges ahead, but I'm well down the road.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well done.
And I made an Ubuntu podcast channel for the Roku as a follow-on from our discussions at FOSS Talk Live.
Oh,
so
if you have a Roku.
If you've got a Roku, you can now add the Ubuntu podcast to your Roku, and you can listen to us there.
That's
Excellent.
awesome. How do you do that? Is it like, is there a JavaScript framework?
Yeah, it's called Sugru. So this is something I've been tempted to do for ages, and I just idly searched for, somebody that had done a podcast channel on the Roku to discover that Roku have recently updated their SDK and released some example code, one of which is how to make your own podcast channel on the Roku. So you take that and you just have to tinker with it a little bit. The most complicated part of this is actually making all of the art assets, which I'm terrible at. So that took me like 2 evenings to just make these 17 images in the right aspect ratios and resolutions and all the rest of it. And then the actual code itself is called BrightScript, which looks a bit like JavaScript. And that just needed a few little bits of tinkering with just to make it work with our feed properly. So in terms of development effort, almost none whatsoever. It was more interesting actually enabling developer mode on the Roku itself and, accessing those tools on the Roku, because you have to sort of get the Roku to sign your package once you've made it, to make a crypted package that you can publish to prove it came from you and all that sort of thing. So it's more interesting from that point of view rather than the actual development effort.
Ooh.
But I've made one for Bad Voltage as well.
Cool. Let's get on with it then.
So 25 years ago, more or less, the world's first website went online at CERN. And I thought it'd be interesting to hear how each of us first got started with the web. For those of us that are a little bit more wise, what we had before the web, and then what the web has changed in how we use computers and our lives in general. So to kick off the discussions, were any of you using the internet before the web was a thing? And what did that internet look like?
No.
Mark?
No.
Ah.
I bear in mind the first website went online 25 years ago and I went online 28 years ago.
I feel so old.
I used the internet before the web, but I should have known better by then anyway.
Okay, well that's the question. So you did use the internet before the web?
Yes, but the web existed.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay.
It was just I couldn't be asked to haul myself from across campus to the main computer room, which had web access rather than the computer room downstairs from my accommodation, which didn't have web access.
So what was the internet without web access then in that room?
Pine and Elm.
Right. So it was just email.
Pretty much. It could have been other things as well, but I had no idea.
Okay, Alan.
I remember I worked in IT support in 95 or thereabouts. So what year were we talking here?
91.
91. Yeah.
So it's a bit fuzzy before then. I'm pretty sure that I used Kik's conferencing before then to talk to people in like chat stuff, not real-time chat, but asynchronous kind of like forums. And when the internet came online, they implemented a gateway that allowed you to tell it a web page that you wanted. And then you'd connect and do your send and receive and then hang up. And then they go and get the web page. And the next time you did a send and receive, you'd get the web page. And so I did Richard Stallman style internet browsing for a while, on a modem and whatever phone. I was in the same way that people now are hunting around looking for Wi-Fi. I used to hunt around looking for a BT phone socket that I could plug my laptop into and do a bit of quick illicit dial-up. I used to live in a rented house and we had a payphone because the house wasn't ours, and I used to unplug the payphone and plug my modem in, and because I didn't have to pay anything because the payment thing was inside the phone, and so I just unplugged the phone from the wall and plugged my modem in and just use it. And then I felt guilty, so I chucked a few 50p's in the payphone just to yeah. So I'm not admitting to fraud
50p's were worth more then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, bigger as well,
at the time, when I worked in desktop support, I used to get like drivers for Dell laptops from a dial-up server. So I would dial up Dell directly and get drivers. Like you'd have to get some 8-character file name, .3 character, like .zip or whatever. You'd have to know the name of the file that you were going to get. And you get that file, and that would be the drivers for the sound card in your Latitude, whatever, laptop or whatever. And then eventually they moved onto the internet where they had an FTP server, so you could FTP in, and you had to CD down to some obscure directory somewhere and find those same zip files. So I think I used FTP before the web.
So when did you come onto the web?
It was definitely around 90-something, 93, 95, something like that, because I remember, probably 90. Yeah,
I can almost see the kind of the wibbly lines and woo as we go back into Poppy's past.
What was the first company I worked at where they had a corporate internet connection?
Oh goodness, yeah.
And most of them didn't, so it was mostly dial-up. I remember having so my first experience of the web, I think, was a Pipex dial floppy disk that came free with a modem that I bought at work. And I put the Pipex dial in on my laptop, installed the software and dialed up the internet, and it gave me 30 days free internet. I then nuked the laptop, put the floppy disk in again, and got another 30 days of free internet because we had to pay monthly after that. So I would just keep reusing this 30-day free floppy disk to get online, plugging into just a phone line wherever I could get one.
More internet fraud.
Yeah. Prior to the web, my internet was basically FTP, Usenet, and email. I was first connected to the internet because the TCP stack in OS2 Warp for dial-up was sort of hard-coded to use IBM.net. So my ISP for a while was IBM, because that was the only way I could get OS2 onto the internet. And then I switched to Daemon internet, and that had various services, but it was mostly email, FTP, and Usenet. And Usenet I kind of miss, because Usenet was pretty great.
Interestingly, Daemon Internet was Daemon was the username of a Kix user. So I was on Kix, and the guy who wanted to create an ISP had his nickname Daemon, and he created Daemon Internet as a side project, and then that obviously took off quite well.
Yep. So that was the miserable internet. So what were our first experiences of the web, actually, connecting to web pages with a web browser?
So in 1998, it was the end of my first year at uni. And as I say, I'd avoided going online because I couldn't be bothered just walking to another computer room. I didn't need it. I had email. I was happy. And then one of my friends made me go to the computer room with him and sat me down and opened Netscape Navigator. And we looked at some websites with grey backgrounds and Times New Roman probably. And so that must have been about June. And then in July, somebody else showed me how you could write your own web pages. And then that summer we got a PC at home because we'd had Acorn and stuff before that. And we had a PC at home. And that summer I was learning how to write web pages. So something went really quickly there. It was very weird, my first. And it just became normal really, really quickly to have websites.
My first experience of the web must have been in about 1998 as well. I think I was in year 6 at school, and we went on like a residential trip where you go away for a week to like an activity centre. But one of the activities was go on the web. So there was like a room full of, I think they were Acorns, which were connected to they had some terrible web browser. And I remember, I think I found a website about The Simpsons where you could type in what you wanted and it would do the scene with Bart writing on the chalkboard with your text on it. And I had
dynamic
hours of fun
user-generated content.
Wow.
And then, yes, I think it must have been a year or two later we got dial-up at home. On Windows. Yeah, that year would have been when we got our first Windows 95 computer. So that would have been probably around the same time, actually. And then, I think that was CompuServe to begin with. And then it was the old thing of every
free
shop.
Serve then.
Yeah, every shop would do a 30-day free trial. And so we'd,
just type yourself around.
Yeah, from one to another.
Whenever my mum was at the shops, she'd find one and bring it home, and we'd use that for 30 days. And then I think my dad got fed up of the amount we were spending, and we got broadband when that came out.
We had a second phone line put in eventually because it was just ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I remember a couple of years ago I was talking to my dad about when we first got NTL, it was, so it was cable, and he was saying how much it cost at the time, and I was amazed about that he was, going to fork out that much for what wasn't a terribly fast internet connection. And then he told me how much we were spending on dial-up before that, and it was a considerable saving.
Yeah,
I think the very first web browser I ever opened was Mosaic on a Toshiba 2100 CS, a dark grey laptop that had a nipple mouse thing, which is probably where my fascination with them comes from, because it was like my first.
Your fascination with what? Sorry.
Yeah, okay, I'll leave that with you. And I remember opening various random web pages, and grey background, Times New Roman font. I don't remember. Look, I think I may have been to the BBC or a couple of other big names, but I don't think I did any. But I do remember going to a friend's house, and with my laptop and going, look, we've got the internet. Let me plug it into your phone line and I'll show you the internet. And I connected to the internet, and then we found some chat room and then started talking rubbish in this chat room. And I now hang my head in shame thinking about it, looking at the people who come into the Ubuntu IRC channel and talk rubbish. And I just think, that was me 25 years ago.
Yeah. So definitely the first web browser I used was Mosaic. And it was where I worked at the time, because I was running OS2 at home, and there was no browser for OS2 for some time after Mosaic came out on Windows. So at work, one of the guys at work had compiled Mosaic for Win32. And at lunchtime, we used to go and hover around Phil's computer and go to websites. And this is sort of 93. And at that time, it was there was a complete index of all of the known websites. It was measured in the thousands, but you knew what they all were. And there was even I forget the name, but there was even a site that kept a log of the new websites that had been added each day.
Wow.
And so we used to, keep a track of what had come out and what was new, and go and sit with Phil at lunchtime and have a look at the new websites on the only browser that we could get reliably working on this one sort of blessed computer.
Wow.
And my fondest memory of Netscape was Netscape 0.4 Beta 2, which introduced the feature that when you click on a file to download, it actually started the download in a separate download window rather than in the browser itself. So it used to be that whenever you downloaded anything in the browser, it would just download in that one. There was no tabs back then, so it would just download in the page, and suddenly you could download things in parallel to looking at it was just, marvelous. It was magic. And then finally I got a browser on OS2 and I was much happier.
In 2000, which was the summer I graduated, I got a Matrix phone and I had WAP.
Oh, yeah.
That was miserable, wasn't it?
It would have been better had the browser not been so buggy. And I had to replace the phone once at least, but it just never got better. But I was able to check my email on my phone in 2000, which at the time was just amazing. It was only worked, obviously, because that particular email provider provided a WAP page.
We've talked a bit about, the miserable dark ages before the web and first experiences of the web, which were equally miserable. So when did the web start getting interesting for you, and what changes were significant in how you used the web?
I think the thing that I used the web for the most in the early days was that actually got me, online and staying online was forums. So it was communicating with people, really, finding other people with the same interests I had, and I had some fairly niche interests, which I, didn't find a lot of people with the same interests in my local area. But getting online actually kind of taught me that however weird you are, there's people who are just as weird as you.
Yes.
I think the thing that struck me about the web was instant access. That before the web, I had a PC at home and I used to send away for a catalogue of software, and I would pore over this catalogue, and there was a little order form in the back, and I would fill in the numbers of all the floppy disks that I wanted to order with all the software, whether it was a Pascal compiler or games or templates or whatever it might be. And I'd fill in this little order form with the 10 floppy disks I wanted in my order, post it off with my check or postal order to whoever, software, PO box, wherever. And then a little stuff padded envelope would drop through the letterbox maybe a week or two later, with all these duplicated floppy disks with typewritten labels on them that had software. And so it was, mail order software in the same way that it used to be mail order music and mail order video. And now you just click a button and whatever you want is just right there instantly. And I think that has changed a lot of people's attitudes. I can get any book I want, any music I want, any software I want, probably in under a minute I can get anything. And that was the big change for me, is going from mail order to, instant access.
Yeah, similarly, online shopping, via the web has been the biggest boon for me. I hate doing grocery shopping. I've hated it for years.
Me too.
I haven't done the bun fight on a Saturday at the grocers for years.
Yeah.
And Louise and I have been buying all manner of things online rather than traipsing around shops looking at endless fridges or whatever it is you're looking at. The web has brought the specifications of every fridge imaginable to you. You can measure your space. You can decide what features you want. You can find the thing, and the next day or 2 days later, it can be delivered. I mean, it's just fabulous.
Funny. Claire is actually doing our online shop right now while I'm talking to you. But I remember laying in bed recently and Claire saying to me, our mattress is really uncomfortable. We should get a new one. And I grabbed my phone, went through Amazon, looked at loads of reviews and went, there'll be a new one tomorrow. That was it. It's like not only instant access to digital media, but I can press a button and a whole new mattress arrives tomorrow. That is unbelievable.
I was just trying to think what the first thing was I bought online, and I'm a bit sad that I can't remember what it was.
That's a good question.
I do remember
a Weird Al Yankovic CD with my dad's credit card from cdnow.com.
it was
CD Now.
It was probably a DVD actually then.
Yes. I remember buying DVDs from a guy called David Carradine. He had a website called DC DVD, and I actually went to his house. He was a flat. He used to dodgy import them from the US. So I had Region 1 and like Japanese DVDs, and he had a flat near Heathrow, and I go to his house after I paid online, and it was the first time I'd ever experienced PHP as well, because the web page was index.php, and I thought, what the hell is PHP?
The web has basically opened up a life of crime for you.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think I was doing anything wrong there. Moving on. Yeah.
But yeah, I do remember my first experience of online grocery shopping, and that was awful.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it took about 3 hours. I could have been there and back. It was so slow loading the page every time you made a change and finding what you did last time. And
I think some of the big supermarkets in the UK actually didn't do it on the web initially. They actually had an app. Well, it would have been called an application back then, but a desktop application where you press a button and it would synchronize with the server, and then you do but it was painful locally. Yeah. So once they went to the web, that was brilliant.
For me, the most important thing that the web enabled was I was running OS2, I was using Unix at work, and the web enabled me to find Linux, learn about Linux, and ultimately make the switch to Linux. And that became easier when the likes of Google came along and presented a single way to search the web.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I was having to use Lycos and Alta Vista and Yahoo, and you even had applications that you'd put your search phrase into. They'd go and search 50 different search engines and then give you your... it's just miserable. Google was a big enabler to actually making the web usable.
Yeah, and actually I was just thinking that while online shopping has been a massive convenience thing and, as you say, access to things, I think the biggest change really is information, because now you can be having a conversation about something and then you just go, I'll just check. And it's just incredible. You couldn't do that before. We must have spent our lives being wrong and not knowing it.
There's a flip side to that. There is the flip side that having an argument in a pub over who was that guy who was in the film with what's her name from that TV program. Those conversations that you can have over a beer are great. And now someone just pulls out IMDb and goes, yeah, it was Mel, whatever her name was.
You can have another discussion as well, though. And it's not just that; it's just in conversation.
The web has killed conversation. That's what it's done.
No, I mean it adds to it massively. It's great. I love it.
Well, I'd be interested to know what our listeners think about that. Has the web made our lives better? Has it increased conversation? Has it reduced conversation?
Grumpy old men.
What will it look like this 25 years? What will it look like in another 25 years?
Yeah,
I'd love to know what people think.
We love getting your feedback, so please send it to us. Even the pointlessly mean stuff makes us laugh. If it's short, tweet us on @Ubuntu Podcast. If it's less short, but please no essays, email us on show@ubuntupodcast.org. If you'd like to discuss some of the things we talk about with other listeners, post on our shiny new subreddit at reddit.com/r/Ubuntu Podcast. Or you can just leave a comment on the relevant show notes on our website, ubuntupodcast.org.
And now it's time for Command Line Love. And this week I've taken this from a post which I saw shared by someone on Google+. And it was a post about improving slow boot times in Ubuntu 16.04. And 16.04 ships with systemd by default. And the post talks about using a couple of useful tools. One of them is systemd-analyze. And there's a couple of useful command line options for this. One of them is systemd-analyze space plot. And that will generate a graph showing you it's actually a boot chart showing you how much time is spent in each process and why your machine is taking so long to boot up. And you can get it to generate one as an SVG, as an image that you could just load into, SVG viewer, Inkscape or whatever, or Eye of Gnome or whatever. But you can also get it to spit out an HTML file. And that's really good because you can open it in your browser and scroll around up and down, left and right, zoom in and out and see what's taking up all the time, as part of the boot process.
Cool.
Yes. So the other command line option, which is super cool, is systemd-analyze space blame. And if you do blame, it lists ranked in order by which things are using the most CPU time during boot up, with the most offensive one right at the top of the list. So if you're wondering what's eating all my boot up time, systemd-analyze space blame, look at the top of the list. It's probably that one.
Cool. And then put that into Google and see people saying, why does this take all of my boot time?
Yes, exactly. I mean, we used to have a boot chart package that you would install in Ubuntu and it would spit out PNG files in a particular directory. But now this is a different way of doing it and it works really well. It's really
Excellent. Cool.
Cool.
And that's the command line love.
And now it's time for your feedback. First up, John Breezer left a comment on our website.
There are still devices that can't do HTTPS securely or sometimes even at all. The other side of secure web service use, as discussed on the show, is that the data in transit is only one of parts of the security/privacy challenge, and your computer still needs to do a DNS lookup to find the host's IP address. Most of your public sees the HTTPS padlock or whatever icon and thinks everything's fine and dandy, but isn't getting as much protection as they think.
And Will also left a comment on our website about HTTPS.
Between Let's Encrypt making a TCTS certificate and Google and others developing the latest compression algorithms and making HTTPS load faster than HTTP, I can't see much reason to use HTTP now.
Yeah, I think this goes back to the conversation we had last time about the fact that we don't use HTTP on some of the mirrors. And the fact is, we don't control those mirrors. So we can't control whether they're HTTP or HTTPS. So
there's also a practical reason why you might want those mirrors serving up ISO images to be HTTP. In the distro that can't be named, it was originally HTTPS on all of the sites. And then I found out that holdouts on Windows XP couldn't download the ISO images. So I opened HTTP back up again.
Is that because of some SSL2 change in the browser or something?
Because, in order to keep your TLS secure, you have to go to TLS 1.1 or better, and they don't do, XP doesn't do SNI and all sorts of various things. So, so I actually went back to a mix. So you have to expressly request HTTP, but at least if you are on one of those OSs that doesn't support all of the new fandangled stuff, you can still download the thing.
Brilliant. That's an excellent counter-argument. I like that.
Jordan Atkins emailed us at show@ubuntupodcast.org.
My wife runs Windows 10, so we can use Quicken to track our finances. I've heard good things about GNU Cache. Any advice on migration?
Not from me, other
Not
than
from me,
GNU
either.
Cache is very good, yeah.
I've never used either.
The only time I've ever kept track of my finances, I just used a spreadsheet.
I use YNAB.
You use what now?
What?
You need a budget. YNAB.
What's that?
It's kind of like a spreadsheet, but enhanced. And
Is that an app or is that a website?
well, the version I've got, it runs under Wine, but now it's all web-based. And it's got apps. It's very good. And if anybody wants to try it, I have a referral code.
Is it a code that you type in or something? Or
I can't remember. I need to find it.
find it and put it in the show notes, because
Okay.
I think that's super valuable information that you should get a kickback from.
It's very good.
Alistair Grant left a comment on our website.
It's great to hear all the positive talk about the Meizu Pro 5, and since my old Samsung Galaxy S2 just died, I'm in the market for a new phone. Unfortunately, the Pro 5 on the Ubuntu website shows sold out. Does anybody know how long it's typically sold out for before it becomes available again, or is there another way to order the phone in Czech Republic?
As far as I know, it will not become available again. The only way to find out for sure is to contact Meizu and ask them. Because we don't control what devices are available and when they're available. That's totally down to the partners. And so if you want a particular device, you need to nag them about it.
There are some posts drifting around Ask Ubuntu and XDA developers that describe how to flash Ubuntu on a Meizu Pro 5, specifically the one that came with the international firmware. Now, I've read some of those. I haven't tried this, but my understanding is that whilst you can get Ubuntu on there, no one's found a way to get the OTA updates automatically apply. So you have to manually do the reflash of the new versions.
That's
so
weird.
that's potentially an option. I've not looked at this in great detail, but that's the problem that I've seen two people bump into.
Strange. The other thing that's worth noting is that the Meizu devices come in a Chinese version and an international version, and as you said, the international version is unlockable, the Chinese one isn't, and it's not immediately obvious which one you have if you buy one on eBay. So if you buy one on eBay, the seller might say it's an international version, and you might get it, and it might not be, unlockable. So just be aware of that. And the same was true of the Meizu MX4 as well.
Yeah. Neil Batchelor left a comment on our G Plus page.
Listened to the live show last night. A huge thank you to whoever recommended Control+R in Terminal. That's me. It's been one of those hallelujah moments. No more searching through endless history. Just jump to what you need.
So I did try this, but I couldn't work out how to cycle through.
You just keep pressing Control+R.
Oh, okay, and it just goes back through. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't try that. I tried using arrows.
You could install the thing that Martin suggested, and then you actually get an NCUS's list interface, which you can use the arrow keys to move around and stuff.
Yeah,
okay, that sounds better. What was that called?
Yeah, HSTR.
HSTR.
Okay.
It's in the show notes for episode 23 and a half. A link to where to get it from.
Okay.
Finally, at some point, someone has mentioned episode 23 and a half.
Yes. Okay, the live show.
The live show. Tom C. in Dublin emailed us.
RE, Microsoft versus US government and data retrieval outside the US. I believe if the US used the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty with Ireland, they would have gotten the data direct from the Irish authorities. Interesting.
Duncan Hopkins tweeted us at Ubuntu Podcast.
Just listen to episode 23 and a half at 2 times speed. Please don't play a ukulele on the podcast. At 2 times speed, it isn't pleasant.
Please don't listen to a podcast at 2 times speed. It sounds mental.
Ukuleles don't sound good at 1 times speed, to be honest.
Oh, I loved at the beginning of the show how we were all just wetting ourselves laughing. And Mark kept an entirely straight face and just got on with it, total pro.
I had no
I was
idea
going to say,
he was
the
gonna
only
sing.
professional among us.
Yes, true.
I knew he was going to sing because he put clips in Dropbox beforehand.
Yeah, I'd had a listen.
I didn't listen. I wanted to be surprised on the night.
And
And you were.
And I was, yes, absolutely.
Well, true to form, I was being prepared because there was a point at which I thought I was going to be Mark's mic stand for the ukulele,
yeah.
so I needed to know what was going on. Happy days, happy memories of Foss Talk Live. I look forward to the next one.
It was a good event.
Yeah. Bunny3 left a comment on our website.
I enjoyed the elementary OS segment very much.
Excellent.
Good.
To hear.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Tom Ostring emailed.
I've noticed since the 1604 release that adding get to apt-get is no longer necessary. I'm still using apt-get just out of habit. Is this no longer recommended behavior? Kind of.
Yeah.
But there are things that apt-get does that apt doesn't, and things that apt does. So apt has been around for a while, since 1404, in fact. You can just do apt update and apt upgrade, and it has a nicer UI. You get a little percentage bar that shows you, how far through the download and upgrade process you are. It's a bit nicer than apt-get, but there are a few bits missing. But it's nice.
It's been extended in 1604 and in Debian and 1604, and it wraps more of the apt tools. And Michael Tunnell from Tux Digital made a video explaining the new apt a few months ago, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes, and it will go through some of the finer points of the new apt and where it originated from and how it's evolved.
Excellent. Is that the end of the feedback?
It is.
Yes.
And that's all for episode 26. We'll be back next week when we'll have more news, comment, and discussion.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Yay! And relax.
It's rather
was a big
warm
one.
today, isn't
It
it?
is
really is.
rather warm.
It is.
Close, as my mum says.
Yes.
Well, see you next week then.
Yeah.
See you next
Or
time.
Strawberry and elderflower wine next week, I think.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Look up at the moon one day